Hello everyone. This presentation today is about breed-based ontology and data management. My name is Chris Simões. I'm part of Miller Lab team at Boyce Thompson Institute. Breed-based is organized as a digital ecosystem, and the main idea here is cover all steps in a breeding program, including how to design your trial, how to manage germplasm, field trials, and so on, how to store data from field evaluation and also genotyping. There are some tools for analysis, and then make selection in field. Finding a trait is an important step before storing your data. To find your trait, you have to go to search and then traits. Select the ontology you want to search on, and then write on the name or part of the name that the trait you want to search, and then click on search. And after that, you will have a list of traits or with similar names you have typed before, and then you can click in the name of the trait you want to see more details. In this case, I was searching for dry matter content, and I found this one, dry matter visual rating 1 to 3. And here I can see the term ID, the term name, and definition. It is a visual rating for dry matter content of fresh cassava root, and the numbers available are 1, 2, or 3. There is no synonyms for this trait, and here in this trait property there is a very important point, which is trait default value 1, 2, or 3. It means only those values are allowed to be stored in the database. So if you go to the field and collect the data for dry matter visual rating, and you type, for example, 11 rather than 1, and try to store 11, it's not allowed. You have an error message saying there is something wrong with your number, and please check it again and try to store. So this is a very important filter in data collection. However, if you do not find a trait that you want to work on in field, you can post-compose a new trait. And post-compose a new trait means there are already some traits, they are stored in breed-based, but you want to combine different attributes or objects to your trait and creating a new combination to store the data. And how to do that? You can go to Analyze, and there is an option here named Compose a New Trait. Requesting a new trait. In the previous case, I was talking about how to post-compose a new trait if you have already some traits and some options stored in breed-based. However, if you are not seeing a trait on an option that you want to see there is a way to request a new trait, and this is the website where you have to go. And in this website, you can select which ontology are you working on: cassava, sweet potato, musa, banana, yam, or potato, and fill the other options, and then select a new term or update term or synonym, and then submit your request. In this case here, it is submitted to curation. So after that, we will get an email, and also curators will have an email about this new request, and then after validation, it will be available in breed-based. It's the same way. If you are not so confident in how to do that, please let me know and send to me an email. And traits and quality control. After storing your data in breedbase and you want to check how your data is in your trial, you can go to your trial and access phenotype summary and statistics. And here you will see a list of traits that your trial has, and there are some terms to check the quality. For example, the mean, minimum, maximum, standard deviation, coefficient of variation, percentage of missing data. And also you can click in this histogram, and in the histogram you are able to check the data per replication. For example, I'm selecting this part of the histogram, and it is showing the first replication and then also the second replication. You can see here the difference between plots in the same trial. Also, in the trial details page, there is a box there named Analysis Tools, and here you have trait heritability, and you can see a list of traits, and you can check the genotypic variance, environmental variance, residual variance, and heritability for each trait you have. Also, you can use heritability as a quality control or quality indicator. Creating tissue sample. Tissue sample is important to work with NIRS, for example. Also, there are other tools you can use tissue sample, but in this case I'm interested to show tissue sample for NIRS. Tissue sample can be created here. You can go to Manage and select Tissue Sample, and then create tissue sample for field trials. Trials are organized in this way. Trials have plot. Inside the plot you have plant, and then tissue sample. And following this workflow, selecting your trial, you want to add some tissue sample and how many plants per plot you want to add. If your trial does not have plant entries yet, you can add it here, and then add tissue sample. In this case, I want to evaluate for the same route two different preparation, in this case boiled and raw, for the same route, just two different slices. So I'm making two tissue samples, and after clicking on submit you have this message: successfully created tissue sample entries. And then to store NIRS data, you can go to Manage NIRS and find your template, and what you need is a tissue sample name or sample name here, and the wavelengths. I'm showing a file with tissue sample names and wavelengths and some spectrum data. The file must be in CSV format. That's very important. Storing progress of NIRS data at working package 3. First thing is upload accession's name using a list or a text file. Then add the breeding program, for example UAC Benin. Also add in trials location, such as DASA. The third thing is add field trials. To do that, you can use add trial in breed base, or for example, using the right file format and then upload to the database. And finally, you'll be able to load your NIRS data. There are already 4283 NIRS spectra uploaded in breed base by working package 3. 249 are from CIRAD in YAM base, 160 by CIAT in cassava base, 982 by NACRI in cassava base as well, and 2892 by SIP in sweet potato base. Some challenges were faced during this process, such as linking the trial data with the NIRS spectra, which means create a tissue sample and link this tissue sample with the spectrum, and also putting the file in the right format. Next step is each partner should appoint a data manager to accelerate the uploading process. Here is an example of quality traits in cassava base. At CIAT, in 2020, there are 15 of 64 trials being evaluated for cooking quality. Pollination and harvesting is ongoing. Here, you can see a snapshot in cassava base from CIAT, where it's possible to check the data quality in this histogram for a quality trait. And also it's possible to see many different post-composed traits with different times and also different sample prep. In cassava base, for instance, 9 new variables were defined to describe quality traits of boiled cassava. And with those 9 variables, you can combine with age of the plants and also different boiling times, post-composing new traits. Post-composing new traits for quality traits, you can select variables or trait in this box, then selecting, for instance, boiling times, and also combine with the plant age. Here we have a template to upload post-composed traits for a trial. The trial is stored in cassava base with 36 genotype, and there are 38 post-composed traits associated to this template. However, in this slide, I am showing only 5 different post-composed traits. The trait is changing weight after boiling computation percentage in different boiling time. Here is only 10 minutes, here is with 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and 50 minutes. And with this template, you can fill each column with the right number after your evaluation, and then store in breed base, or more specifically in cassava base. Here is the template with all information you need to upload in cassava base or in breed base. The first column is the plot name, and here there are the traits or post-composed traits with all numbers from your evaluation. After that, you can go to cassava base and upload back your evaluation. Checking the result for your quality trait in cassava base, like we talked before, you can go to the field trial details page and check the mean, minimum, maximum, standard deviation, coefficient of variation, count, percentage of missing data, and also see the histogram. And also you can go to Analyze tool and check the heritability. From 2020, there are 4 trials already uploaded in Cassava base with quality traits, one with 434 genotypes and 5 variables and 1 harvest. The second with 377 genotypes with 5 variables and 1 harvest. The third with 36 genotypes and 9 variables and 4 harvest. And fourth with 28 genotypes and 9 variables and 2 harvest. Integrating data from trained sensor panel of working package 2 in BreedBase. In this first table, you can see the data in the format available from BreedBase with plot name, plot ID, accession name, and so on. In the second table, the data is from sensor panel, specific per panelist. You can see the identification of the panelist and with sensory attributes. And after validating this format, it will be available in BreedBase. So breeders will be able to search for sensory profiles for varieties. Sensory trait dictionary for the crop ontology was developed describing trait name, method, and scale. And when combining a trait name with a method and scale, we have variable name. For instance, boiled root surface yellowness combined with method appearance, method, and scale yellowness, scale 0 to 10, we have this variable name, boiled cassava surface yellowness, scale 0 to 10, which is the variable used to collect the data in BreedBase, for instance. Currently, sensory trials are using specialty trials to make sensory evaluation. Is it the best way to do, or should BreedBase include a new model for sensory panel? Or should food scientists use BreedBase as their lab book for trained sensory panel and making all information available in the same place for breeders and sensory panelists and anyone that want to search the data? Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I want to welcome you all to the data management and ontology session. My name is Afolabi Agbono. I'm from Haiti, cassava breeding, Nigeria. I'm a data manager and ontology curator for yam and cassava. I'll be moderating this session, and my co-moderator is Elizabeth Arnold. Elizabeth, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Afola. So good afternoon and good morning. I'm Elizabeth Arnaud from the Alliance CIAT Biodiversity. I lead several ontology projects. I'm the co-leader of the digital solutions in the Alliance. Thank you, Afola.
Okay. We all know the importance of data management and ontology and how the both drive harmonization of data and support interoperability. So this session, we'll be having panelists. We have about 9 panel members. We have Violet Akech from Uganda Haiti Banana Breeding Program. We have Thierry Tran from Sirat, Colombia. Michael Kanabi, the data manager from Nakri in Uganda. Prasad Peteti from Haiti in Nigeria. Cristiano Simos from BT High. Karima Mega, Sirat, France. Lucas Muller from BT High. Beth De Bock, data manager from Sweet Potato and Potato Seed, Peru. Priscilla Marimo from Balvasti, Uganda. So we'll be having a number of questions to ask, and the question is open to all panel members. So feel free to answer. there might be specific question directed at some of the panel members. So if any other person have a question to ask, you can just drop it in the chat box. We'll pick it up and we can ask. So I will start with a question, which is drafted from a comment by Dominic. The meeting and annual report in period 3 demonstrate the complexity and diversity of the data generated by socioeconomic field surveys, biochemical spectral analysis data sets, rheological data. How do you think these data sets will be integrated? So if I rephrase this question, considering the complexity and diversity of the different kind of data set generated, how do you think of integrating this within the database? And should it be within BreedBase? Thank you.
Can I go ahead? This is Prasad Peteti. Could you hear me?
Please go ahead, Prasad.
Yeah. So honestly, I would like Lucas to answer this question, but like let me share my views. So first thing is like yes, definitely like all this all the data that is the complex and diverse data can be integrated into BreedBase. So for these things, like we need several steps. Like first thing is like ontology should be described very well, and it has to be like a uniform across crops, because like some similar terms generated can be cross-cutting, like boiling, and because they will be using the same method, and also the mainly like we should have the terms. It should be in the terms of a database structure, so that to accommodate the data. However, like I feel like a little bit worried with the survey data, as it needs a more like extensive discussion, and because like we need to keep the identity of the respondent, and which will be like a texture responses, and these responses we need to synchronize, synonymize into like a breeding or quality traits. And for we started like we actually tried to do that, like, and so but like what one alternative was, like we were able to store this survey data in our institutional database called like CCAM, so in IITA, and which directly will link to the trials, or like which are in the breed base. So this is how like we are trying, but like as you mentioned, like these things definitely can be done, but like maybe Lucas can give a more precise answer.
Thank you, Prasad.
Yeah, hi. This is Lucas. Yeah, I think Prasad answered all the questions pretty nicely. I think we need a couple of things that we need to implement in BreedBase, and one of the most important things I think is the sensory panel trial type, so that we can store these data in a better way. And I guess we have a ticket on that, and we're working on that. For the survey data, I think again Prasad has mentioned the key problem, which is the anonymizing of the data. So if we anonymize the data, we can actually store the data in the database without too many changes. But we cannot store the identities of people or other identifiable information, meaning very precise location information will not be possible. So if we can take the data and create interesting metadata groups, we can store that information in the database. So for example, one such metadata group would be females versus male respondents, or geographic areas, and so on. So that the data needs to be processed in a specific way to be able to be stored in the database. And that's basically outside of the ontologies that need to be further refined and worked on. That's basically the two major issues that we're working on.
Can I take the floor, Afola? Because
Yeah,
you
please
have
go
some
ahead.
related question in the chat, in fact, because there was question about adding fields or perhaps modules to allow for coded text based entries from the descriptions collected through the consumer interviews and not only the panelists to providing the sensory data. So this was a question to Deborah. From Deborah, sorry. So I think it's, as Luca, you answered more or less saying that there would need adaptation to be able to access the coded text that is coming from the interviews with the farmers or consumers. And also I had that question a little bit later, and there was the question about, can we add to the already loaded variables the indication that the variable or the value is coming from a trend panel or hedonic survey to consumers, for example. So this is the type of questions we need to solve, I think, to make sure that data collected through surveys can be linked in breed-based back to the material when it's doable. Yeah, so, and there was, sorry, the chat is moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, yeah, Aurélie had kind of same, we would need to have the end user consumer acceptability linked to the sensory evaluation as well. So it's another data set to add. So this was the same kind of questions, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. So I see a lot of follow-up questions also in the chat box. You know, which is related to. Can you still hear me? Hello.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Yeah, so I see a lot of follow-up question in the chat box as well, you know, from Vincent. Vincent is asking about the different words usage for what seems to be the same thing, or also for different things like cooking pattern and cooking behavior. Do we seek input from an English editor for precise precision? Is this done in the RTB food quality trait description? Oh, okay, so this is not related, you know. So we'll go back to these questions, you know. We'll go back to most of this question from the chat box. So my second question is also drafted from Dominic question. So the question is about samples used on accessory studies that were not taken from a few trials, like market. So what's the status of these materials in breed base? And what's the value of such data to the breeders? So if I rephrase the question is about samples, because we know germplasm is the entry point in breed base. Everything is built around the germplasm list. So if samples were bought from the market, how do you take care of this in breeder? What's the status at the moment, and what's the value of such data to breeders?
Well, this type of information could be stored as a new germplasm name, and then you can add some attributes in this new germplasm name and store this information this way. And yeah, I don't know, maybe Lucas can have more comments about that, but also I would like to comment about product profile, because it's pretty much related to product. And also in breed base in general, you can describe the product profile, and then you can search, for example, between accessions and the product profile you want to have in the future.
So yeah, exactly, Chris. Like I'm just adding something. Like maybe we can add some like a location ID or like a market name or something, like a string to generate a unique identifier. And maybe we can even provide like a picture of those things, like, and link it to that, so that like we can easily like identify that particular sample or identity. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chris and Prasad. Do we have any other panel members that want to probably provide more insight on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, yeah, in principle, it's not a problem if you have a sample and it's not linked to a trial. I mean, you can still enter it as an accession and store metadata about it. I think, however, that maybe we need like a market trial trial type in the database. I think that would be useful. That will give more metadata about, you know, the market where it was collected and so on, and the reason why it was done. I think that would be very useful. So I think that's something that we should add as well.
May I add a question on that?
Yeah.
I think there are technical solutions in the database to identify a sample that was not taken from a field, for sure. And I think your ideas are good. I just wonder what is the value of those data taken on a variety from the market for the breeders? How can they relate the data on a material that was taken with probably a local name? If it is not identified for the variety name, what is the value? Is it just to give kind of a reference to the taste of the community because you can go back to that variety on the market, or just to understand the final?
That's an interesting question, and also the question is, you know, how much the sample would actually be identified as a specific accession that we already have in the database, or whether that won't be always possible. That would be nice to know.
Oh, okay. So Elizabeth, let me hand over the button to you. You could ask some questions.
Yeah, so I will try. Some of the questions have been answered, the one we took from the online document, but I encourage you to go and reply, each of you, from the panel member. Let's put my glasses on. I need that now. Okay, so there was questions from Claire's mainly about the ontology and the importance of having a strong ontology to at least link, interlink, and make those data sets, very diverse data sets, interoperable. So the question of Claire, I could answer myself. It's the status of the development of ontology for RTB product quality. So I don't know if Claire, if you were mentioning for food product quality, I just put the link to the report and the trade dictionary that has been developed with Amos Azimoy, who is online. And you will see that we already propose trade dictionaries for sensory trait for trained panels for all the boiled product. And we also started to develop dictionaries for the processing qualities, because as Prasad said, you need an ontology to describe the cooking techniques and all that step. But you also have some variables that will be food dependent, food specific, because you have all the steps for boiling, steaming, frying, all that. And the variables to measure the time taken to boil or to steam or is linked to the food product. So we have that available, but of course, as the module doesn't yet exist in BreedBase, you can't see it yet. But this is something we already discussed with Lucas. And I have a question anyway. So Claire asked if the ontology is indefinitely expandable. I would say yes, potentially, but at least if you want to keep it usable and consistent, probably you need to make some choice, particularly in the length of the variable names. And I would like to ask Priscilla, how do you see, Priscilla, the BreedBase could include the information about the social segments, because it's important for documenting the breeding product profiles? Priscilla.
Okay, yeah. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for that question. And I think this links to some of the questions that have already been asked, actually, and some of the responses from the panel. So as mentioned, we have a lot of data from the different work packages, and from work package 1, we have a lot of qualitative and quantitative data, which are focused on trait preferences for different users. So part of the work that we plan to do in period 4 actually is to create what we are calling user-defined ontologies, with the user here being a producer, processor, consumer, a trader, because we have information from all those users, and which are essentially the different value chain actors. But I guess the question is, is it something that we can put in the crop ontology and link it to breed-based, or do we need a separate ontology that will look at user-defined ontologies? I think that's a discussion that we probably will have with some of you on the panel and even the others. So anyway, what we plan to do is to map the socially differentiated preferences of various end users into the crop ontologies. And then we plan to document this process and ultimately develop a manual or guideline, because that is not there at the moment. And together with crop expert groups. So we have created crop expert groups. At the moment, we have a banana one. So banana will be our first case study or our pilot. And then from there, we can see if we can replicate this in for the other crops. So yeah, so that's what's in the plans. We will contact some of you to just also be involved in thinking through how we can do this, and if at all it's possible to put it in the crop ontology and link it to breed-based, or if we need something different. So yeah, that's my comment on that.
Thank you, Priscilla. Afola, we received the slide that there was 5 minutes left, so probably it's time to wrap up.
Yes.
So on my side, I would say that we certainly need further discussions with the VP leaders to understand how the data could link and draw the schema for that, and make some decision about adding elements of information in breed-based.
Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth. I think I agree with you that we need to further discuss. We need a further discussion around this, and I would like to thank all the panel members for their responses. You can go to the Google Drive and you can post your responses to the questions we have posted there if you have other kind of responses. Thank you very much. Hand over to Higlentine. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Afola. Lots of questions, a lot of topics that should be addressed all together indeed. And thank you, Afola, for reminding everybody the Google Doc. I will extract the questions unanswered from the chat box and include them in the online Q&A forum, so that you will have the opportunity to answer afterwards, after the session. And also to remind that this Q&A online forum will remain open after the annual meeting. I'm now giving the floor to Cathy and Pascal for the presentation on the different communication tools that have been developed within the framework of RTBfoods to promote your work, to promote your results, and communicate on our achievements at a larger scale than the only RTBfood family or RTB family. Cathy, Pascal, you have the floor.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Cathy speaking.
Hi, everyone. Pascal.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Cathy speaking.
Hi, everyone. This is Pascal.
We're going to present you the communication achievements for period 3. For the past year, the RTBfoods project has been in the news. The tools put in place for its communication are multiple. a website, which we will visit together just after, a newsletter that you must have received in recent months, a YouTube channel, which includes all the webinars hosted by Eglantine, and a Twitter account that some of you follow assiduously. It is all together that we can use these tools and make them known around us. Now let's visit the website together. First of all, the address, which is no longer a secret for anyone here. Am I wrong? So let me remind you. It's www.rtbfoods.cirad.fr. For this commented visit, let's go through the menu, top right. You click on the pink square. The project section summarizes the objectives of the project. It offers a showcase for founders and partners. And it is here that links are made to your institutes. The team area, a sort of gallery where many of you will see your photo along with the role you play in the project. Then there's a second part of the website, which is reserved for the 13 processed products classified according to the 5 plants studied. Each product, like for instance, boiled cassava, has an identity description. What is boiled cassava? How is it traditionally processed? By whom and where? And on the right-hand column, you find a list of recent publications about this product. The third large part of the website is reserved for deliverables. It's a bit like the project's cellar, where we keep everything that has been produced since the beginning. Here, classified by year, you have at your disposal everything that you have produced within the framework of the project. Everything is classified according to a refined menu to facilitate the search. The period 3 deliverables will be online before summer. The last section of the website is called Resources. This is the useful section where you go directly to find useful links. We imagine that this is the place you have been passing by most frequently in the last few days, as it houses the whole program of this virtual annual meeting. Also mentioned in this section are the newsletters, a direct access to the YouTube channel, and a papers of interest page, which we have thought of as a catalog of recent publications on RTBs. So this is a very useful tool for you. Here, tabs have been created to sort the publications by products, but also under the themes of tools and methods, gender, and finally, RTBs in general. In each of these tabs, there is another even more refined classification, publications from the project. That's where your articles published in the IJFST special issue are listed, as well as publications outside the project, but all equally important. Now let's go back to the homepage of the website. So you see this moving block? It's the news block. It's when you get to this page that you get a sense of the project's atmosphere and its dynamics. The more these little blocks move, the more they are updated, and the more we show our visitors the vitality of the project at a glance. This is where your work and your role in the project should be valued. You do many tasks, you get results, you provide trainings, you equip your labs, you participate in harvests, you write articles, you travel, you are RTB Foods ambassadors on many occasions, as we saw in the Women in Science Day. We do not doubt it, but you don't always think to tell us about it. So please try to take a step back, put your modesty aside, and alert us. Contact Pascal, make suggestions, and she will advise on the best way to valorize this news. This can take different forms. It could be an interview, a simple illustrated essay, but it can also be the production of a clip. The clip is coming. Sorry for this. Here's the clip. So it could be also the production of a clip, like the one made on Julien Ritchie's return from his mission in Guadeloupe, or the one on the operation of the hyperspectral camera with Karima. These products are very successful, especially when they are relayed on social networks. For this, a few bits of video shots with a mobile phone, a few photos are enough to tell a little story or a manipulation. Just recently, Didier Mbege and Pascal worked on telling the story of how atieke is made with a few photos taken in Côte d'Ivoire. It won't take you long, we promise. Let's keep it simple. The important thing is to communicate on a regular basis. To take up this challenge, you should expect to receive messages from Pascal asking, what are you doing at the moment? How are the harvests going? How is the work in the labs going? Who is this new collaborator? Or are you welcoming a PhD student? When have you had occasion to talk about the RTB Foods project lately? Etc., etc. Yes, everything you are doing in this project is interesting. And yes, you are the main actors of the communication. It is up to us to put you in the picture. So thank you to those who have collaborated so far, and thank you to each and every one of you for our future collaborations. And thank you for listening.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Thank you, Cathy. Thank you, Pascal, for this very dynamic live presentation of the RTB Foods communication tools. I'm now starting presentations prepared by Claire Shea, member of the advisory committee on the breakthrough of the International Journal of Food Science and Technology special issue dedicated to RTB crops that all of you, or most of you, contributed to this year.
Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to be part of this year's annual review of RTB Foods, and especially in this role of being able to report on the successful publication of the special issue last month, March 2021, of the International Journal of Food Science and Technology. The issue titled Consumers Have Their Say, Assessing Preferred Quality Traits of Roots, Tubers, and Bananas, and Implications for Breeding. Many of you are intimately familiar with this special issue, especially as co-authors of one or more of the 36 included papers. In this brief talk, I want to summarize the background and the purpose of the special publication, the processes in its development, give an overview of the content, and finish with some lessons and some guidance for the future of RTB Foods and related projects. The concept of a series of publications based on RTB product profiles emerged from conversations during the 2019 annual meeting, especially envisioned by Dominique. The ideas continued to evolve over several months and slowly became formalized in a process I'll describe a bit further below. The centerpiece would be a methodology paper which described the systematic development of product profiles, including both socioeconomic and biophysical sciences. The main body of content would be the description of the development of 11 RTB food product profiles. From that first seed, there could be many details about the germination, growth, and finally, the harvest, but I'll present just a few of the key ones. The main purpose of this publication, as described in the journal's call for papers, was threefold: to define and communicate an improved
Apologies, everybody. I'm just restarting the video clip. Sorry.
a bit further below. The centerpiece would be a methodology paper which described the systematic development of product profiles, including both socioeconomic and biophysical sciences. The main body of content would be the description of the development of 11 RTB food product profiles. From that first seed, there could be many details about the germination, growth, and finally, the harvest, but I'll present just a few of the key ones. The main purpose of this publication, as described in the journal's call for papers, was threefold: to define and communicate an improved knowledge of the end-user preferred quality characteristics of RTB products, to promote use of this knowledge to help elaborate goals for both processing unit operations, which are under food scientist control, and variety traits, which are under breeder control, and finally, to contribute to better end-user acceptance and the successful deployment of technologies for a positive impact on RTB value chains in Africa through a dynamic and close interaction among social scientists, food technologists, biochemists, and plant breeders. While not specifically stated in the call for papers, RTB Foods expected to gain a high profile from such extensive publication in a highly coordinated and integrated approach. For the record, I'll give you a few of the details regarding the process behind this effort. Dominique requested the support of Bruce Hamaker from the project's External Advisory Committee to contact some journal editors who might support the idea of a special issue. Bruce received strong interest from Charles Brennan, chief editor of the International Journal of Food Science and Technology, followed by a firm commitment from the journal in mid-May of 2019 to publish with a proposed January or February 2020 publication goal. In early August, at the journal's request, Dominique, Bruce, and myself accepted to be guest editors. Dominique informed the proposed lead authors and writing teams about the planned special issue and requested agreement on participation. Although there were doubts, and some teams were doubtful about their ability to meet the deadline, there was unanimous enthusiasm about this initiative, and by the end of August, everyone had agreed to their roles as authors and coordinators. The project contracted me to provide coordination support and input for technical and style editing. The journal indicated that they expected about 15 papers for a special issue, and this was the initial goal set by the guest editors. Something we did not anticipate was the journal's strong suggestion to make an open call for papers. To us, guest editors, there appeared to be both positives and negatives of such a call, but there did not seem to be a compelling reason to argue against the journal's wishes. Thereafter, there was a process that all of you are very familiar with: intensive writing, editing, rewriting, submission, peer review, revisions, and finally acceptance and publication. All of this led to a few extensions of deadlines and of target publication date. And fortunately, the journal editors were very flexible and supportive about making these necessary adjustments in the face of a very large set of papers being developed. Each paper was assigned 2 to 3 peer reviewers and went through 1 to 3 review cycles until final acceptance. Remarkably, and to the great credit of all the writing teams, all the papers presented from the RTBfoods project and CRP-RTB program were ultimately accepted for publication. Very importantly, for this effort, all the project-related papers were supported for open access by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation through the Kronos platform. As you all now know, the special issue on Consumers Have Their Say was published as volume 56, issue 3 in March 2021. The special issue was completed with 36 articles. By crop or crop group, they are as follows: 15 cassava, 5 yam, 5 banana, 4 multiple RTBs, 4 sweet potato, 2 other root and tubers, 1 potato. In terms of types of papers, these can be described as 1 editorial, 1 registered report, 11 original research papers on product profiles, 17 other original research papers, including 6 from an external call, and 5 review papers. The 5 review papers covered trends in global RTB production and markets, case studies, lessons and challenges for increased rate of adoption and varietal change for RTB crops, Gary preferences, fried sweet potatoes, and use of spectral analysis on the quality of cassava roots and yam tubers. Many types of institutes were involved in the writing, including CGIAR centers, advanced research institutes, African national partners, Latin American universities, and an Asian research center. I believe it's worth giving special mention to the registered report, or the methodology paper, by Laura Forsyth et al. This was the first registered report by the IJFST. Registered reports are becoming increasingly popular and now used by over 250 research journals. The registered report is a peer-reviewed research protocol before results of research are known to align scientific values and practices. It emphasizes the importance of the research question and the quality of the methodology prior to data collection. This means that a significant part of a manuscript will be peer-reviewed prior to reporting on the actual research. The system allows a better chance of acceptance of research papers if based on a registered report. Although the journal had never previously published a registered report, they were keen to do so and supported the guest editors with guidance on the process. A key stipulation was that this paper needed to be submitted and accepted for publication about 6 weeks ahead of any of the other papers in order for peer reviewers to have full access. I won't go through the full list of papers, but here they are for the record with links to the full articles, and you can consult with those links. Let's look now at some of the lessons from this experience and guidance going forward. I would say that the motivation imposed by the rigors of publishing created a huge incentive to finalize analysis, to share and exchange ideas, and to understand the pathway forward for further research. All the project teams, whatever the initial level of skepticism about the feasibility, came together to accomplish this monumental goal. The special issue accomplishes several internal, that is RTB Foods and partners, and external, non-partners, goals. It's the first time that such an extensive treatment of RTB food quality is addressed and shared with a global audience. The methodology paper can be used globally for developing food product profiles and can be adapted to other crops. The review papers provide context, background, and an additional basis for future planning. The original research papers bring a high level of scrutiny to the RTB Foods project, give credibility to the work already done, and guidance to remaining project activities. The papers provide the first steps toward identifying the key traits for biochemical characterization and subsequent high throughput phenotyping protocols. With regard to this last point, according to research reported in this special issue, the main characteristics preferred by RTB consumers of boiled products are rapid softening and/or the development of friability or mealiness during cooking. For pounded products, the main objective is to obtain a smooth and stretchy dough with easy to swallow texture, colors, and taste aroma typical of each RTB. For cassava-derived products, color, acidity due to fermentation, stickiness in the fingers, and texture of the dough in the mouth are key sensory traits. Additionally, the swelling characteristics of gari in hot or cold water, atieke during steaming, and fufu in hot water contribute to consumer preferences. Of course, the papers noted many challenges and raised questions for future research. The role of gender is not apparent in the large majority of papers as a clear criterion for prioritizing traits in the product profile. However, these data are continuing to accumulate. In some contexts, quality characteristics prioritized by food chain actors were similar for products in different contexts, and for others, it was the opposite. Agronomic and processing practices differed substantially among all profiles, even for similar products in the same country, by factors such as gender, ethnicity, migration status, and wealth. Research managers and breeders will need to have better information on the extent of the target markets, current and future, for each RTB product in order to assess the cost benefit of a breeding investment. Breeders can only manage a limited number of traits. Crop management and processing modifications may accomplish improvements in consumer acceptance more quickly than breeding for some traits. Nonetheless, the detailed quality analysis protocols being developed in this project will still be applied. Finally, the exercise clearly took a lot of effort, but shouldn't be seen as something that detracted from the ongoing priorities of the RTB Foods project. Instead, it was highly complementary, built confidence in the validity of the hypotheses developed, in the scientific methods and analyses of results. It was a monumental accomplishment for which the entire RTB Foods team can take great pride. But publication isn't the final goal. The introduction of change to ongoing systems for how new varieties are developed, tested, and adopted is still a long road ahead. We must make some very important acknowledgments. The writing teams, especially the lead writers, for the excellent work and for 100% acceptance rate by the journal. To farmers, processors, and other food chain participants for providing product data, viewpoints, and other critical input. To Kathy and the rest of the PMU for continual administrative support, and very extensively to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for supporting open access of the journal articles through the Kronos platform. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Claire, for this presentation. And congratulations to everybody, to all the authors, co-authors, and contributors to these papers, without which we could not have reached our target of publication for this special issue on RTBs. Let's now have a tea break or coffee break, and let's meet in 10 minutes exactly at past 20 for a new session on product profile panel. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a good rest for 10 minutes before this key session. Before giving the floor to Hans van Doorn and Christian Mest for the facilitation, I will ask Hans to share his screen for an introduction to the concept of product profile. And Hans will also take this as an opportunity to highlight the remaining challenges that we all together need to overcome in the next period to consolidate the 11 product profiles, RTB food product profiles. Hans, you have the floor if you want to share your screen.
Okay, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. It's an honor to talk to you all. And I have to admit, I miss you all because we are a distance and discussions run in a different way than I'm used to. But so far we do very well. So let me introduce myself. I am an advisor to the RTB project. Many of you know me from different and earlier meetings. And today I do it from a distance. So I'm Hans van Doorn. I work for a private breeding company, HZPC. We are a potato breeder. And we have an R&D department. We have a size of about 110 scientists, breeders, and persons daily active in breeding. And in that department, I'm leading two important departments, I would say. One group is the phenotyping group. We have about 140 different traits in potato that we breed and select for and that we phenotype. And my team is involved in the objective phenotyping of those 130 traits with whatever principle. So a broad number of instruments that have been discussed already a few times or many times during the review.
Yes, you are not sharing your screen. Not yet, I mean.
I'm not sharing my screen.
Not
That's
yet.
true. So I will indeed share my screen.
Yes.
But I was still given an introduction.
Okay, sure, sorry.
For myself.
Sure.
And I can simply continue with my introduction and then indeed share the screen. Okay. Then, so let's continue. Phenotyping is the love of my life, and I'm doing phenotyping already for over 30 years in many breeding clubs. And you've seen presentations in the past about our efforts in potato. The second theme is evenly important for me, and that is what we call the quantitative genetics team, where we make sense from phenotypes and genotypes to assist breeders for the right crosses, the right selections, and the right modes of working in a difficult crop with many traits, all multigenic, etc. So that is my background. Today I will talk to you from my quality background and product profiles. And I've made a presentation which I will like to share with you. And
Hans, can you put your presentation in slideshow? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's in slideshow now. And I start with a further introduction of the theme of today. My dear partner and assistant today is Christian, who will help me out later on after my presentation in the discussion and addressing the right questions to the right persons. And there is, of course, the broad team of product champions that I have highlighted in yellow: Robert, Bussy, Hugo, Noel, Bonamle, Gerard, Delphine, Kefas, Ruben, Jan, Thiago, and Boni. And I hope that I can ask or forward questions that are relevant and need to be answered in the later discussion. So To put things in perspective, I made a small presentation about product profiles and to compare the product profiles in RTB and the state of where they are currently in and our profiles in the company. And then we have some challenges to optimize product profiles, what I call to quantitative product profiles. Because the quantitative part is very relevant for breeders and to make the right crosses and to select for the right levels of those traits in all those families and all those crosses along a breeding program. Finally delivering the right varieties that have the right combination of traits at the right level. And then they get adopted by consumers and end users. I have put a disclaimer because I share information with you that is confidential in the rest of the world. And I hope that you respect the profile I share with you, that you take it for education and inspiration and own preparation, but that you don't start talking about it easily with what we call competitive partners and companies in the world. If I look at the current RTB situation, the traits are identified through Work Package 1, and they are nicely listed in terms of words and priorities. It was an excellent job, and it gives a very nice overview of the traits. And a lot has already been mentioned about it, and you have a very pleasant situation that you know now which traits are relevant in all of the crops, where you should work on, and the challenge now is to translate those traits into quantitative traits and try to find the optima of those traits in the different crops and in different profiles. So the traits are or will soon be further quantified in breeding programs, and you have in Work Package 2 and 3 QDA panels and instrumental standard operation procedures at low, medium, and high throughput. And those are the instruments that you will use to translate traits in terms of wording and priorities into a scale where you would like to end up in certain varieties and in certain combinations. So the product profiles are being listed as required traits and need to be expressed at these highest levels. And then they can subsequently be defined in breeding selection, variety introduction, and communication practices. And that is a real challenge. And you need to know, and you already know, that product profiles are not fixed. They will evolve and get optimized during their use in variety creation and an adoption process. And it's very many times already mentioned that that process is still going on and that you learn every new activity, every new evaluation, and every new survey, you learn more about product profiles. And what you also need to realize is that product profiles and preferences evolve also in time. The preference of today may be totally different a couple of years from now. The traits that are important today may disappear in 2-3 years from now, and new traits will pop up. You should realize that. So you have to refresh product profiles regularly. So if you look at our profiles, then you could also have a look at the challenges for the RTB crops. There is a need to get the required traits defined and validated in the context of all genetic variation in breeding programs. Because it's obvious, if you start studying traits in a limited part of your program or a limited part of your scale, you miss essential information and essential feedback from the end users for that part. So it's very relevant to have the full range studied at end user level. It's also relevant that the procedures where you measure traits are there at reference level, and that's often wet chemistry level in a laboratory, and at high throughput level, because traits need to be measured at high throughput for a breeder to do the selections and to study the families and to discover new variants or combinations of traits. So high throughput and a scale are very important. The profiles need to be defined at desired expression level, like I indicated you, because these levels match the end user requirements. And the quantitative product profiles then can be applied in breeding and selection of the RTB crops. And in the bottom corner, you could see that there are targeted approaches and untargeted approaches. Many people give a higher value to targeted approaches than untargeted. But the reality is that quite some untargeted approaches perform better than targeted approaches. For example, if you have a very good near calibration for a trait, sort of measuring and predicting the variation of a trait with 70, 80, 90% accuracy, then the reality is that you do not need which traits or alleles give that contribution to the variance and the prediction of variance. Yeah, it may help, but it's not strictly needed. And later on, if you do that for genetics, similar principles apply. A very good genomic selection model is performing better than targeted QTL model that is explaining less of the variance. But that is a different story, not for today. Okay, so I hope I have given you a sense of product profiles, their structure and their expression levels. And then Christian and I took the opportunity to give an overview, create an overview of the current state of the art for the different products that have been reported during this review. And then we have distilled some questions that we would like to discuss with you. So if you allow me, I go to a couple of slides where I give structure to the next discussions. So this is an overview where we have summarized what we call the perceived state of the art of the work package contributions to product profile development and their applicability per product. There's 5 work packages, and we have done it quite high over, on track, slightly behind, challenges to catch up, and major challenges in the colors for the products in the table. And the greener it gets, the better the package and the profiles are supported by or consumer data, or by instrumental data, by sensory data, high throughput efforts, then breeding contributions to what we call delivery of the right genetic variation for the activities in other work packages, and of course the adoption trials and information obtained from those trials as a service to the other packages. And you see quite some variances between different products. You see that there are indeed challenges. Most challenges can be explained because Corona has been a game changer with serious consequences on quite some teams. And that makes the challenges even higher in the coming 2 years of the project. But this is what we believe is a sort of reasonable overview of the current state of the art of all your activities. And the good news is that you have made very nice progress on average, and that you are well on the way to reach the final targets. So we made some observations. And The first observation is that the end user traits are well identified for all crops and all products. It's also an observation that consumer and end user traits need to be translated in sensory attributes through quantitative descriptive analysis and trained panels. That is partly well done, partly seriously delayed because of COVID, and partly on the way. The attributes need to become measurable with instrumental subs at laboratory level, at medium level, at wet chemistry level, and later at high throughput level. And those expression levels of traits and attributes measured on the quantitative scale need to be added to the product profiles to make them usable and applicable in the breeding process, and also for communication, of course. Some products ask or seem to ask for multiple product profiles, like we experience for potato, and that may be region or gender dependent or other factors dependent. It's obvious that work package 2 and 3 have crop dependent. They are most challenged with respect to the progress and applicability of the SOPs for product profile development. And that is asking for a certain method of working in the remaining part of the project and for a certain approach to catch up. And we will propose there some what you call tools to reach those targets. We see also, again, crop dependent, an imbalance between traits that are currently measured and those that need or should be measured. And then with respect to what we call sufficient association to the prioritized sensory attributes and traits. Most traits and attributes are measured and developed on a part of the existing genetic variants inside breeding programs. And in the rest of the project, probably it's challenging that the rest of the variation that's currently not studied is added to the activities in the different work packages, but also in breeding programs and of course adoption studies. So we have some suggestions and some observations for the teams that have delayed activities. And you could ask yourself, which consumer traits have real priority for QDA sensory screening and development of the SOPs at lab and high throughput level? Because if you work on the real priority traits, you get more focus and you may cancel part of the delays. So probably it's time to reconsider the focus in those programs and only give attention and effort to those top priority traits. The same is true for the biochemical and biophysical measurements. Are they associated to the traits and attributes? And do they deserve it to be continued, or should they be discontinued? And then the question there is, of course, where to put the multivariate correlation bar. Because if you look at the presentations and the progress, you see quite often one-to-one correlations, but not multivariate correlations. Yeah, you have to remember that most attributes can be approached in a multivariate way, and that a combination of measurements may do a better job than single correlations. So that is a remark and recommendation I give to quite some teams in the Q&A files. So the alignment and capacity and the functional role of measurements may cancel part of the delays. You see quite often in different projects and work packages that the order of working is not at times optimal. The preferred order is sensory profiling first, development of instrumental SOPs after that, and then a high throughput version of those SOPs that perform in wet chemistry. And sometimes you see a lot of effort in protocols and SOPs that are even not yet associated to the attributes. And then you may run the risk that when you have your SOP ready, that it's still not correlating to the attributes and not really useful for that purpose. And this is just a reminder that working in the right order will probably save you from a lot of disappointment at the end. And then there is, last but not least, the challenging synergy, we call it, between different products of the same crop. If you would merge in a creative way and use near spectra of raw samples for the prediction of multiple products, then you would enhance the critical mass and robustness of your NIRS data, and you could predict four cassava products, 3 plantain products, 2 yam products, and 2 potato sweet products at the same time with the same data set. So synergy and merging and consolidation can give you a lot more speed, and that is a clear recommendation, especially because you need quantitative data for those product profiles. And the more you have, the earlier they are adopted by the breeders. My last slide is suggesting actions that come out of the evaluation of the last couple of slides. The first action is that we should create product profiles in terms of listing of the traits per category, and then you can use quality, sensory, agronomic resistance, etc. Yeah, and that can be done, it should be done, and is already done by the different work packages, bringing together all the data from different work packages, and then you may come close to the product profiles that I've showed you from my company as an example. And then the very next step is add the desired expression levels of those traits in terms of objective measurements, and please obtain those measurements from the full variety range and the full trait range. And then those two together make a very useful product profile. So, because you are all not at the same speed at this moment, for known reasons, there are some frontrunners. We identified boiled cassava, pollen jam, and matoke as most advanced in this respect, in terms of sensory profiling and in terms of chemistry and even high throughput. And those teams, can you make those product files as an example and inspiration for the other teams? Because once you have the desired example, the others can quickly follow and act accordingly. Those contributions can, of course, come from all work packages in a joint effort. And then you probably end up with that some required traits do not have an operation or protocol available yet. And then you can do what we did, put it as work in development or trait in development, and that will remind you that the SOP has to be finalized soon. That is my last slide. And that brings us to discussion. And what I would first like to do is give the word to Christian to take it over for me, that I can have a sip of tea because my throat gets a little dry. And then we start up the discussion with the product champions. And probably, Christian, you followed the chat box, and you can probably start asking or giving the floor to the first questions and answers.
Okay. Thank you, Hans, for this presentation and for this recommendation. I think it will be very useful for us to see the product profile table you show us. We cannot share this table, we understand this, but it is a good example of what we can define in our project to define the qualitative traits for the product profile, then to define the quantitative level for each traits, then use them for the breeding program, yes. And you give us also some recommendations. And so I will ask to each panelist to react to this recommendation and this example of way to have this product profile. So who wants to react to Hans' presentation and recommendations? Among the panelists, please. Nobody?
What we possibly could do, Christian, is ask the question to one of the products that are advanced in development. And so maybe we could give Kefas the floor for Matoke and let him tell how my approach for product profile would match Matoke. Kefas, could you give some response on that?
Thank you, Hans, and thank you, Christian, and thank you, fellow panelists. First of all, let me, I appreciate your comments. First of all, in our presentation, you gave very good comments, and we tried to respond to them, and we also saw that you kept on following and interacting with us as we responded. And on your approach, I think we really agree with it. And if you look at how we've been working on Matoke, we really started by understanding the preferences from the field. And then we went to the lab and got the sensory descriptions of those profiles. And we are now concentrating on working and quantifying and doing the biochemistry of the priority traits. And you can imagine how your comments are timely, and therefore how a discussion of this approach is also timely. And I also appreciate the colors in the table. I agree with the coloring. And I see that in Matoke, you have a lot of yellow on work package 3. And there are explanations to that. I may not go there now, but I think I can give a chance to other people to make comments. Hans.
Okay, thank you, Kefas. Perhaps Bolan have a comment about the targets for the product profile, because she presented in the product profile Ponodium quite a good table, a qualitative table, the first step of the product profile table. Perhaps you can comment, Bolan?
Thank you very much, Hans, for that presentation. Actually, with the Panda Jam, we see that from the Panda Jam team, we looked at, that is the raw yam, via the processing, and then to the final products. That was the approach that we used in Panda Jam. And from this, we looked at the important quality traits in the Panda Jam, and these are the ones that we'll now take to the lab to do the biochemical analysis. So this is the format that we have been following. The only thing about Anne's presentation that I see that we have not been doing the quantification from the red, yellow, green. I've been thinking since, after the presentation or while the presentation is going on. And I think I posed a question on the chat. How can we quantify this? So actually, we you know, basing it on the agronomic resistance as it did it, we started from the raw yam. We looked at the technology, the technical aspects, that is during the processing, and then the final product. So that is how we've been working on the pounded yam so far for now. Thank you. That will be my comment for now. I may comment later.
Okay.
Thank you, Bologna. Yes.
What the list of the chat box is increasing every minute, and there is some interesting questions. One question is how to translate our potato approach to the crops. And the best recommendation there is that you have to sit together and sort of calibrate expression levels of traits to the preferences of the end users. And that is very often very fruitful if you sit together with those end users around one table and propose a draft product profile where you sort of have proposed those levels and then fine-tune them with them and conclude in the end of the discussion that you are on the same page and the same scale and agree on and understand what is offered and what is really needed. And those product profiles and discussions with clients happen quite often. So we have the practice that we take our product profiles with us when we visit users, consumers, and processors and clients. We expose them to the profiles, we ask their opinion, and we have sort of validation that the profiles are matching their desires and requirements. And that is a sort of annual process. And then in the end, you have a mature product profile that is understood by the users and really representing the requirements in the market. So that is the question. And an answer to that question, I hope.
Thank you, Hans. Jan Lo wanted to ask a question or make a comment.
Yes, first, Hans, I always appreciate seeing your tables and insights. And I think the key point that hits me, and I think it's a little in contrast with maybe what Claire said in the previous presentation, is he stated that breeders needed a limited number of traits. But I think what you're showing is actually breeders can manage a large number of traits and must manage a large number of traits through indexing and procedures, because our world is getting more complex. And I think two things struck me from our work on the fried sweet potato. One completely agrees with what you said. We need sweet potatoes for the fried market that also do well as boiled potatoes, because at the farm level, they're mostly consumed boiled, but the primary use in the growing, expanding urban markets is as fried products. So to be a successful variety, we need to do both. And I'm very happy to know that at JHI, they had 15 varieties from West Africa, which they analyzed for the cell walls and the beta amylase as boiled products, which hopefully this year they'll now look at as fried products. And then we'll get some more of the pasting work done in Ghana to look at the same varieties. So I really like this idea of building and linking the boiled work to the further processing as we need to be breeding for the future. So I think that's the take-home messages I want to leave. And then I have a question for you as breeders. One of the things I saw across the different projects in the WP1 work was there was a lot of identification of really preferred local land races in terms of their quality traits. And in the medium term, should we be really focused on analyzing the potential of those local land races as parents? You know, because of the complexity of getting all the quality traits into a single variety, should we be looking at that heritability and use of those you know, identified local land races as parents? Would that be a good strategy to speed up this very difficult process?
Jan, first a quick answer on your remarks and discussion points. I agree with you that breeding is a multi-trait thing and breeders can handle many traits. And handling many traits is a multivariate question, and that also applies to the genetics or the quantitative genetics of multiple traits. It's a different game than often is done these days in many crops. And I would like to challenge you to think multivariate, and not only for traits, but also for the quantitative genetics of traits. And that is really challenging. And I have referred to that already a few times. Genomic selection, multi-trait genomic selection is the way to go in this respect. To keep all traits on board and handle them in a balanced way. Then you were referring to multi-purpose use of sweet potatoes in this case. I can share you an experience. You have two options. We did multi-purpose variety development. In our situation, most of those varieties failed because they were not good enough for either purpose. And that's why we created different profiles for different uses and had one profile for each typical use when the volume and demand from the market was big enough to justify it. Because many traits are contrasting each other and inversely related to each other. And then you try to get the best of both worlds and you end up somewhere in the middle as a compromise that is not good enough for both worlds. So that are my remarks. But you know better if you can have a compromise, multi-purpose product profile, or you should create two. And indeed, I would also like to get the feedback of a breeder. I don't know if Hernan is in.
Briefly, please.
Yeah, can Hernan give feedback on this discussion, please?
Good morning. It's good to be here with you guys, and thank you very much for the presentation. I was writing while this discussion was going on. My concern is a number of traits that we have to deal with, and an idea that I think we should explore in our crop is to develop a sort of gene pools that will characterize germplasm with particular characteristics so that we can then start to combining. I remember in a meeting with the people from Monsanto, they had in vegetable breeding pools for high yield, pools for resistance to biotic and abiotic stresses, and pools for quality traits targeting specific product profiles. From my perspective, in the breeding part, this is what we should probably think about developing. I don't know if that idea is sensible for the discussion at this point.
Okay.
Yes,
If I
thank
go back to the...
Claire wants to have a remark.
Oh, so I just want to respond to some of the comments about my statement that breeders can only deal with a few traits. And I think we are probably on agreement about few or many traits. I think breeders need to pay attention to many traits, as Hans is showing very clearly in that table. But the breeder needs to prioritize just a few to focus on those ones where they hope to make genetic advance. Monitor many traits, but I think only a few can be targeted for genetic gain. So that's my point. It may still be debatable, but that was my point.
But I think we can manage to have many traits and many targets. There is tools to manage with this. Don't you think so, Hans?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also agree with Claire. That is that we make a division in the top priority traits, so let's say the top 15 and the rest. And what you see then by using those algorithms where you give weight and priority to the top traits relative to the smaller traits, yeah, and you end up with the right balance. So yes, you have differentiation tools to give different weights to the list of traits. And you have to remember that quite some traits have, in a multivariate context, quite some high associations and relationships, mutual relationships. So if you work, for example, on high-dry matter, you bring along associated traits at about a similar speed in your programs. And that is also of benefit. So if you would say, if you apply multivariate analysis to that, and you would go to, let's say, remove the redundancy in the multivariate space, then your task becomes a little more easy than the long list is suggesting. But that is data handling and quantitative genetics. Okay. I have
a comment.
Yes, please.
In relation to all the tools that we are developing, I think that we have to keep in mind that the main purpose of these high throughput phenotyping tools is to make a pre-selection that will sort of allow us to throw out the garbage and focus on a fewer number of genotypes that are worth to look at in more detail. So the tools should, from my perspective, serve in the task of eliminating garbage and facilitating our work. And then you can start focusing on these key traits that are so relevant.
Yeah, and it's obvious that at this moment, you all have the challenge to design your breeding programs and your phenotyping in a way to take the full advantage from the combinations. And I can share you one experience is in the past, we had much less phenotyping and much more, I would say, almost random approaches in crossing. And then you had more lottery than, let's say, a targeted approach. And we get more and more focused on fewer crosses, bigger families, and indeed removing the lower part of those families, taking advantage of the better part, and quicker recommendations in the breeding process to stack and bring the optimal traits faster together using phenotyping and genotyping in a joint approach. I would like to give I have a curiosity of a product that is, let's say, behind at this moment in terms of sensorial profiling. And my question is, is the team confident to catch up quickly with respect to the front runners? And who would like to give an answer there? Because if I look at the table, there is, due to COVID, delays in the execution of sensorial traits. And how do you see the possibilities for the next half year or the next year? Who would like to comment on that from the champions?
Okay, who wants to comment this? Because there was some delay exactly in sensory analysis due to COVID.
Sorry, please, can you repeat the question again, please?
The question is, do those teams that have delays in sensorial profiling, the QDA, do they have the confidence that they catch up in the coming period? Or is it still difficult to start those activities?
This is Gerard. Can I please answer, Hans, please?
Yeah, yes, please, Gerard, go ahead. Yeah,
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to tell you that we really appreciated your presentation, and it was a very focused overview of what has been done. So concerning the confidence, I think for boy plantain, we are real confident. Although COVID-19 had to delay us, we needed some few equipments that are already available. And we think that within the next upcoming months, the COVID-19 would allow people to travel so that some people can be trained in our lab for the biochemical analysis, and our sensory panel also will be retrained. And by the end of this period, I think we will have information on our product profile related to biochemical and physical analysis and sensory profiling also. Thank you.
Okay, Bonnie has a comment?
Yeah. There were some... Please, Brunale, go ahead.
In the Pandedium team.
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is okay? I'm okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for this RTB food meeting. And I would like to thank also Hans for his presentation. But I was surprised that in the table we have red color, yellow color in the line concerning cassava and plantain. For challenge, here we work on 5 crops and 6 products, 6 for 5 products. And we have the concerning the budget. We have the budget we cannot use this budget to work on all these product profile. So we like to make an advocacy for for financial support, if it is possible to increase the budget for us in order to work on all these crops and the profile products. This is the main challenge for us.
Okay, thanks, Bonnie. I think you will discuss this with Dominic after this meeting, yes? Okay.
Yeah.
So there is another intervention of Ugo.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. This is Ugo from Nigeria. Hans, I want to thank you for the very beautiful presentation. It was so nice. I've seen so many things there. Thank you so much. I want to speak about the state of fufu on the products. And like you rightly said, COVID-19 had a lot of impact on the work plan. We believe that this period where we are will make some progress as far as the sensory evaluation with the panelists is concerned. And so far, for the instrumental analysis, we've been able to install our texture analyzer. So I think we'll make some meaningful progress on those two angles and work on the correlation study by the end of period 4. So I think by period 4, we should have made some meaningful impact as far as these areas are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
This is Bolanle now. Can you hear me very well now?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. On pounded yam, fine, the COVID affected us. We were just about to start the sensory analysis last year when it happened. But this year we have done the sensory analysis. We did the retraining of our panelists, and we have conducted the sensory evaluation on the pounded yam. We have conducted the instrumental textural evaluation.
We do not hear you again.
We lose you again.
We started developing the for pounded yam. You can have, oh God.
Perhaps you can send a message on the forum, Bolonle, because we don't hear you for a long time.
Yeah, it's a pity, but indeed, the chat box probably is the best place to put your remarks. We should.
No, we don't hear you.
It's not functioning. We should continue discussion.
Okay, thank you.
With a new question, and you put your remark on the chat box, please.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back again.
Hello, can you hear me?
No, it's you're gone again.
Yes.
It's not working.
I would.
Okay. Network is bad.
Answer your
microphone. What will I do? Hello, me. I'm muted. Hello, I'm muted.
Bolonle, you are regularly not.
I'm muted. I'm muted.
No, you're not muted.
The host is telling me the host has muted. Hello, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes.
Oh, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
We hear you.
Yeah, yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. Now, we have been able to conduct the sensory evaluation, which we were not able to do last year. We have retrained our panelists, and so we have conducted the sensory evaluation. We have developed the SOP for instrumental textural quality in pounded yam, and so we have carried out the instrumental textural quality evaluation of the pounded yam. We are already in the lab now. starting part of the biochemical analysis, the RVA analysis. So those things that the COVID-19 actually affected us that we were not able to do last year, we have started doing them. And so we are confident, we believe that we'll be able to cover up because we started quickly this year. We started quickly last year so that we could cover a lot of grants. And so we have started. Thank you very much. So we believe we'll be able to cover the grants. Thank you. Hello?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, thank you,
Okay.
Bolandi. We hear you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thanks for the update. Probably I would like to move to Ruben about sweet potato and progress. Is that possible, Ruben? Can you give us some update?
Okay, thank you very much. I can give you the update. Our challenge was with the sample preparation to match the one for the sensor analysis with texture analysis. So we used samples that where the protocol was still in development, so it affected our progress in both work package 3 and work package 2. But because we would the sample, it was done in series, it was like a ring test. So I think one result affected the other, so we cannot make very good conclusions. But we are confident that with the next harvest, now that the SOP has been standardized, we can be able to catch up.
Okay, that's great news.
Thank you, Ruben. Yes, effectively, we received some information from your team, and we are confident that you can give some good results on texture analysis and sensory analysis of boiled sweet potato in the next season. Yes.
It's tempting to go to my favorite crop, which is potato. So I would like a question from Thiago, also struggling with COVID and measurements. Thiago, could you give an update about your progress for the coming year? Is Thiago in or is he out?
He's out.
Okay, then I got a message from Elantine that the time is close for the last question. So, Christian, we could wrap up this discussion with the conclusion that quantitative product profiles are challenging, that all the product teams have perceived it as an inspiration to start further working on it, and that there's probably some sessions needed in the coming period to formalize the intentions in the creation of the first draft of those product profiles. So I would like to encourage the product champions, probably for each of the teams, to take here the lead and come to the next level product profiles where expression of traits get incorporated in the profiles, that the list of traits becomes further available, and then probably with some kind of priority from high priority to lower priority, and then indeed find those traits where you currently cannot give the optimal expression levels. They automatically mean that those are the subs that should have the highest attention in development in work package 2 and 3 to enable quantitative scales for those different products. Probably that is a good summary for the coming year or coming years for each of the teams. And that's probably where we should stop today. We had nice feedback. I hope it was very inspirational for all of you. And I wish you really luck in your new efforts, and feel welcome for further input and advices if you like to, because I'm happy to assist you in those steps and advise you in your practices.
Yep.
Thanks
Yes.
all.
Thank you
That's
for all of you.
appreciated, Hans.
Thank you for Hans for these
Thank you.
recommendations. That will be very useful for each team working on the product profile. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
everybody
you
welcome.
so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we give the floor back to Eglantine
Thank you.
for our last remark.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Goodbye. Yes.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you, Christian, and all of you product champions for this really good session.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for the presentation as well, for this very insightful presentation. And we are looking forward to receiving the advisory committee recommendations for period 4. And that is to take place tomorrow at the end of the day. So we are done with today's sessions. Let me just share with you before we stop the agenda for tomorrow. As we mentioned on the first day, tomorrow is a crucial session during which we'll address collectively how to enhance interactions between work packages and across product profiles with 4 different entry points. For boiled products, first of all, for dough products, for consumer testing and sensory evaluation interactions, or let's say linkages between consumer testing and sensory evaluation, and the last one for gender mainstreaming. So these breakout rooms will be moderated, will be facilitated by 2 moderators. We will, the PMU will split all participants by room, by virtual room. We will be sending you a list, the repetition list by tomorrow before the meeting. So just maybe an hour before we meet, we'll share the list with you so that you will know as soon as we open the virtual rooms, you will know to which room you have to go, which virtual room you have to join. So we kindly ask you to pay attention to the email you will receive tomorrow, 1 hour before the session. And then we'll have this breakout session for an hour. And then after the tea break, we'll have the plenary restitution by room, by group, let's say, only 5 minutes restitution. And we'll see if we have time for a short or brief discussion. And then after this, we'll have the recommendations from the advisory committee. As I just mentioned, we are really looking forward to receiving these key inputs for period 4 work plans. And this will be afterward, this will be time for closure. To be mentioned that during tea break, we'll have the meeting evaluation form. We will share this online and we will fill it all together at the same time during tea break. And we'll also give the results of the photo challenge. Tomorrow we'll announce the 9 winners for the 3 categories of the photo challenge. And that's it for today then. Take care and have a nice end of day. And we see you tomorrow, same day, same place on Zoom. Bye everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Cathy.
Bye-bye.
Eglantine, tu vas répondre à tous les bye-bye là, hein?
Bonsoir, bonsoir.
C'est ça.
Bonsoir.
Salut.
Bonsoir,
Profitez bien du confinement.
Ah bah ici tout est fermé.
Fabrice, ça va?
Salut, ça va bien et toi?
Soleil chez Fabrice.
Ça va très bien, merci.
Ouais, il y a longtemps qu'il est couché le soleil. Et, et le préfet, il n'a rien trouvé de mieux que de fermer tous les sentiers de randonnée.
Ah ouais?
Aïe, aïe,
Ouais.
aïe.
Ces préfets, je te dis, c'était les premiers de la classe. Ils ont pris des beignes toute leur enfance et ils se vengent. C'est que ça.
Allez, ciao.
Voilà. Et très
Ciao,
intéressante.
bye bye tout le monde.
Session très, très intéressante.
Very interesting session, you mean?
Yes, very interesting session.
Ciao,
Thank you
ciao.
very much. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Let's discuss your question later, Fabrice.
Sorry?
You made a question in the chat, how to do that with the databases. Let's discuss this maybe on Friday.
Go to the Q&A. Put your question in the Q&A.
Yes, maybe I will put it in Q&A. And of course, we need to speak about this on Friday. I agree.
Sure, yeah. Okay. See you.
Thank
Bye.
you very much. Bye. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.